I think we will get started. My name is Lynn Franks, and David Strang is going to be supporting the running of the meeting this evening. I'd like to welcome you all. We are going to be running a joint ward meeting, which we've done as a result of having fewer candidates RSVP to this event and fewer constituents. So we've joined you together rather than not running the event at all, which we thought was the better option. I think Carolyn will have explained, we will be keeping all of you on mute other than the candidates. And if you've got questions, please pop them into the chat. We will be getting to the questions after the candidates have spoken. We ask everybody to be respectful in the chat. The candidates are making themselves available to us, and we need to honor their willingness by being polite and positive in the chat, please. These proceedings are being recorded so that people who couldn't make it tonight will be able to watch it later. And I don't think there's anything else I need to say before. I'll just let you know who is here from which ward. Qiqi Chen is standing for the Studley ward. Qiqi, do you want to just say hello?
Hi. Thanks for having me.
And Annabel Yates is also standing for the Studley ward.
Hey everyone.
So there are a number of other candidates standing in the Studley ward who were also invited to attend this evening. They have declined to attend, some for reasons who've let us know and some who just haven't bothered to get back to us. You can take from that what you wish. The other candidates, I'll name them, are Michelle Augustine Garino for Studley, Amelia Clark for Studley, Andrew Pedersen for Studley, Kim Sullivan, Studley, and Nick Stavru for Studley. We'll also be hearing tonight from Lisa Holingsworth, who is standing for Lynden Ward. She is a current councillor. And there are other candidates in Lynden Ward who have chosen not to attend this evening. And those are Carl Lee and Charlotte Wang. So, moving on to my script. What we're going to do is have the candidates speak in alphabetical order for 5 minutes each. And they will receive a warning bell when they've got 1 minute left and 2 bells when their time is up. They've been asked to speak in their speech to answer 4 questions that we've put to them. And in a moment, David will read those out to you so we know everybody knows what the candidates are speaking to. After the candidates have spoken, we will then be taking questions from the chat, and David and I will do that alternatingly, and the candidates will each have 2 minutes to answer the questions in the chat. We ask that you not make your questions about, like a specific issue you have in your street, like with your rubbish bins or something like that. We want you to make them questions that are general to your ward or to Boroondara and preferably applicable to all candidates. Okay, I think that's all I have to say. David, can I get you to read out what candidates have been asked to speak to?
Yeah. So firstly, the candidates have been asked to indicate their main reasons for standing for council. They will then answer the following questions. Firstly, in terms of open governance, are you satisfied with the current processes for community involvement? Please include in your answer whether you support the continuation, post-COVID restrictions, of public access to live streaming and recording of non-confidential council meetings. Second question, what is something council is not currently doing that you think should be included in the new climate action plan? And should council declare a climate emergency as part of this plan? And the third question, what role should council play in reducing community emissions, and by what year should council aspire to achieve net zero community emissions?
Thanks, David. So David will be timekeeping this round. And we're hearing from the candidates in alphabetical order. So Qiqi Chen is our first speaker. Over to you, Qiqi.
Thanks, Lynn. I wasn't aware whether we were using our first or last name, and so I was actually anticipating Annabel. Well, okay, anyway, sorry, pardon me. Okay. Hi, I'm Qiqi. I am standing for the ward of Studley because I believe that we need much stronger climate action at the local government level, which even though our current council is moving in that direction, I think we need a lot more progressive and faster action. And I feel compelled to lead that change because we need youth and more diverse voices to advocate for our needs as well. I think that it could be said that youth might not have as much knowledge in making these decisions, but I think that when you meet a task with a beginner's mind and having been trained scientifically in the health sciences as well, I think that using these frameworks that I've gained as a result of education and professional experience, I can definitely use the problem-solving processes that are required to meet the challenges of climate change and adaptation to climate change as well. Just wondering, am I keeping my own time for each question, or will I be?
No, so you've got a total of 5 minutes to speak, okay. And David is keeping track of your time. He will give you the warning bell 1 minute before you need to finish.
Okay, excellent, thank you. In terms of the second question, with our current governance and the processes for community involvement, I think we do need a more transparent council and to disclose decision-making processes, as well as involve the community in those meetings and decisions. And I think that we need a government or local government that is has grassroots intentions, not intentions, working from a grassroots level, which I think local government has a lot more power in doing than we think it, or that it claims that it has, even though we need all three levels of government in helping us move towards a much more sustainable COVID normal and beyond. In terms of in terms of the current council meetings and live streaming, I think that is a great idea. I've been to one myself, and I think it's an excellent insight into the processes of decision making. At the same time, I think that if you are not able to attend, you should be able to participate after the meetings by watching recordings online, as well as more transparency when it comes to councillors making decisions, and that might entail having or noting in the minutes which councillors motioned for or against points that have been brought up in the meetings. And I also think that in terms of facilitating more community engagement, the council should definitely hold biannually or quarterly council meetings, just so that communities residents can meet the councillors and also present their points and to really have their problems heard and addressed in a live way.
I don't want to hurry you up, but I think you're going to run
okay.
if you don't keep moving. Yep.
Okay, thank you. In terms of question 3, yes, there's so much that council can do, and the first step that we need to take is to declare a climate emergency so that we can focus our resources into facilitating climate-friendly, sustainable climate initiatives. And I think that the council should commit to being carbon neutral by 2025. And with question 4, as I mentioned, there is a lot that council can actually do, and that includes having more policies and initiatives that can facilitate for climate change, which might include, for example, transitioning to a EV fleet, and also updating council buildings so that they are energy efficient, and in order to facilitate community change, they can help by, for example, having EV charging stations available for residents to use, for example, having subsidies in place or for solar panel installations with a payback through your rates, as opposed to having to pay for the installations up front, or having options for lower income households as well, and also to planning for a climate adaptation as well. And so that might entail planting more trees to make the climate more livable, especially as the environment heats up, and so the moisture can rise in the air just during really hot periods, and also including biodiversity as well. And
I think I might need to hold you there. We're having a bit of trouble with the bell, David.
Okay.
Sorry, look, I'm sorry. I did ring bells.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some reason they don't seem to be getting through. Did nobody hear any bells?
No. So can you try again doing it really loudly?
Hard to believe. Can you hear that?
It's a little bit vague. Do you mind? Would you mind getting a glass and a spoon?
Okay, I'm
Can you guys hear that? Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, I'll have to go and get a glass. All right.
Okay, glass and a spoon. That'll do it.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that, Qiqi, and to the others. We're getting our systems in place. Were you able to wind down there? You're okay with finishing there?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. I'm sorry about that. Okay, I'm just going to wait for David to return so that we can start our timing again. Sorry about that, everyone. In fact, I can start the timer for David, so I'll run the bells for this one. So I'm just going to say, can I now introduce Annabel Yates, who is standing for the Studley ward? And you'll need to unmute yourself, Annabel.
Thanks, Lynn. I'm happy to speak now, but are we doing it in alphabetical order?
No, because Lisa's from a different ward.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
That's good.
Yep.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Annabel. Yeah, I'm running in Studley and I'm an independent, so I've got no political affiliations or anything. It's just me. So yeah, I'm 19 years old and at the moment I'm studying a Bachelor of Science at Melbourne Uni. And so the main reason that I'm running for council is twofold. Firstly, I want to represent and encourage young people like myself to get involved in the decisions that are going to shape our future. That's a really important thing to me. I think it's a little frustrating for young people to see such poor representation, but in response to that, it's important not to just complain and stop there. I think it's really important for young people to get involved and actually make the changes that we want to see. So this is kind of step one for me, to do something to change the way that my future looks. And that future definitely comes down to how we address climate change. And then the other reason that I'm running is just this lack of integrity that I think infiltrates a lot of our political realm right now and also our council realm. And that frustrates me. I think leadership can be very straightforward, especially at the council level. All it's required is transparent, authentic representation of the people in your area. And so I think that at the council level where I live in Studley, I'm not receiving that. And so I want to be able to give that to the people that live in Studley. And like Qiqi said, I think I urge you not to underestimate young people like myself and Qiqi. That beginner's mind can be super helpful in a role like this because we have a fresh mind and we can just listen and learn. And I don't have any of that preconceived ideas. I'm very open to learning about how the people of Studley want to be represented. I mean, in 4 years, a year 12 student can become a doctor. And in 4 years, that will be the term of being a councillor. I believe I could be a really, really influential person in Studley and also the area of Boroondara. Okay, so the second question was about being satisfied with the current processes for community involvement. In short, no, I'm not satisfied with the current level. Everything in council should be transparent and as transparent as possible because essentially all a councillor is a representation of the people, their ratepayers. So all of the decisions that are made, they should be accountable for. And especially for someone like myself, where this will be a learning process, I think it's actually really important to be able to gain feedback. And I would prefer for my council meetings to be recorded and be able to be watched so that I can gain feedback from the people that I'm representing to tell me whether I'm doing them justice, whether I'm leading the way that they want me to. And I think that's really important in government in general. Good governance and good government go hand in hand. And that is reinforced by transparency. So the third question was about something that council is not doing that should be included in the new climate action plan, and should council declare a climate emergency? In my answer to the second part of the question is yes, no doubt we need to declare a climate emergency. The fact that that's still a question is a little bit frustrating to me as a young person. Currently 2 out of 7 of the candidates in Studley have attended tonight, and those same two were the only ones that mentioned climate change in any of their statements or questions. And I think we found with COVID-19 that in the end, science wins. So you can deny the presence of climate change as much as you like, and you can use meandering climate action plans like the one that we have now, but in the end, it's the young people like myself that are going to have to pick up the pieces. So I really think that firstly, yes, declaring a climate emergency is step one. And then the second thing we need to do is have measurable goals in our climate action plan. The current goals are things like bring our existing environment commitments and define a direction. And they're just very like aimless, sort of vague goals. And that frustrates me because every single day that we don't address climate change is another day that I or someone young or my grandchildren are going to have to deal with the consequences. So I'm very passionate about a really structured and strong climate action plan that is going to get Studley and Boroondara on the front foot with councils like the City of Melbourne and Moreland getting emissions targets and all the rest of it. And then that links into my response to the last question, which is what role should council play in reducing community emissions? I think the biggest thing is providing incentives for businesses and households, and especially coming out of COVID-19, businesses are not going to have the extra cash to become sustainable. So the council has a real crucial role to play in giving them an avenue to reduce their emissions and change the way that their business is structured and functions to be more sustainable from the future. And then the final bit for that question is I think that Boroondara should aim to be carbon neutral by 2040 entirely, joining force with the City of Melbourne and Moreland, and then just the council, we should be zero emission already, but 2022, I think.
Okay, thank you very much, Annabel. That's much appreciated. Our timing is running a little bit loose, guys. Sorry about that. So David, you'll be timing Lisa. So I'm now going to introduce Lisa Holingsworth. She is standing for Lynden Ward and is the current Lynden councillor.
Good evening all, and thank you, Lynn, for chairing this event, and obviously Carolyn opening the event earlier. First of all, I'd like to actually just say I particularly appreciated a comment by Craig Riscali when he talked about often positive feedback is very beneficial, and I noticed with the opening discussions this evening there were quite a few people on chat that actually complimented council and acknowledged the great work that council have done in the last 4 years with the introduction of FOGO and other initiatives. So I certainly appreciate Qiqi and Annabel, and thank you for your youth and hearing how you see it from your perspective of early first year university students. It's very important to get that feedback, particularly for someone like myself that's in her 50s, so yes, significantly older, but also with merit of youth and fresh eyes and fresh thought, and I do agree that's very important. Also important is wisdom and experience. So I'm a 5th generation Boroondara resident, and I've seen Boroondara evolve over a period of 55 plus years. So yes, I see that there's always room for improvement, and I see that we need to be doing more, and I don't doubt that for 1 minute. As a first term councillor, first elected in 2016, as a councillor, you are elected by the residents. So you are not employed by council, you are elected by the residents, and you are the voice of the residents. And that's what I've done for the last 4 years. And that's what's brought me here this evening, and it's what's helped me form my opinions that I agree that council can be doing more. I've listened to the residents, I've listened to the school groups, I've been to school groups. I was particularly impressed by St Dominic's Primary School when I was offered the opportunity to go and talk to them and listen to what the junior students were saying, see what they've implemented within their own school program, and showing how from youth is leading the way up, explaining that, yes, you know, young children, teenagers, adults, people my age, people older than me, we all have concerns. And so when I was first elected, one of the first initiatives that we did as a new council in 2016 was we established what was called an initiative called the Boroondara Community Plan. It's the biggest initiative that's ever taken place in Boroondara's history. It was a community consultation process that it took over 6 months to become realisation. It involved reaching out to every member in the community. It was through the Boroondara Bulletin, it was through e-newsletters, it was through notices, publications, pop-up workshops. We had people everywhere inviting the community to come and say, what can we be doing better? And so based on that feedback that we received from the community, we had 12,000 responses. Based on the 12,000 responses, a lot of the individual people were representative of larger organisation groups. So some of the groups might have had 200 members, some might have had an outreach to 2,000 members. The feedback that we received, if you look at it collectively from not just the person representing that group, but the collective group, is probably more akin to about possibly 20,000 people that participated in the survey. Now I'm looking at a black screen. Can anyone tell me if they can actually still see me? You can? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, look, thank you. And you're back on there. Thank you. It just went black for a minute. I thought
you're going to run out of time to get through all your questions.
Yeah, no problems at all. Yep. So look, I just wanted to hold this up because this is the Boroondara Community Plan. So some of you may have seen it, and you know, I appreciate not everyone has. But in the plan, there's quite a large section on the environment. The Boroondara Community Plan is actually based on the themes that was most important in priority to our community. And there's no doubt in this that our environment and our climate is mentioned, acknowledged, and it's been part of the last 4 years of what council have been implementing in endeavours to be more sustainable and working towards the zero carbon footprint, and certainly within council facilities. Every building that's been designed and every new building that's been designed and programmed is working towards obtaining a higher ratio of a higher star rating to improve how it can be more sustainable and sufficient and to reduce the carbon footprint. Now look, I'll keep moving on here to the questions because I appreciate we're running out of time. You talk about governance, and I just want to read a quote from my councillor questionnaire because I wholeheartedly agree it's very important to be completely transparent. So what I put for my vision for the Boroondara: provide strong civic leadership of high ethical standard based on good governance principles that ensures rates are spent efficiently, providing service delivery to support and connect our community at all stages of life, protect our heritage, safeguard our environment, enhance green open space, support local business and stimulate economy. I believe from my experience in the last 4 years of being with council that there is a good governance, transparency there. The meetings are all documented, they're accessible on our website. Since COVID, yes, the meetings have been live streamed, and more can be done in the sense that I know people are saying that they want the opportunity to ask more questions, they want the opportunity to have more involvement. That's certainly something that this new council term can look at and consider.
So Lisa, I'm just going to interrupt you there because you've run out of time for your 5 minutes.
No.
Given that you are the only councillor for your ward, I hope people won't mind if we indulge Lisa and allow her to answer the three questions that you have just started on. So, but to do it with some expediency because people will want to ask questions.
Absolutely. Look, I appreciate that. And the reason I spoke a little bit longer, I just thought it was important to hear from someone that's actually a serving councillor, to look at it from a councillor perspective. I'll go on now. Something we're not doing. Look, I actually agree with Qiqi and Annabel. I think electric charge stations is something that I would like to see implemented in the very short term future. I serve on what's called the Statutory Planning Advisory Committee, and it looks at planning applications. And I'm openly talking to officers and other councillors and saying that I think this is something that we should be looking at rolling out more. I believe it should be part of a planning permit application for multi-dwelling apartments and also larger commercial buildings, because we need to be planning for the future, and I agree electric motor vehicles is certainly part of that. Climate action, I'm delighted that Council is now undertaking climate action plan consultation. I'm delighted that phase 2 will actually be rolled out in the new council term. So there'll be opportunity, obviously, and has been opportunity for people to participate now, but also opportunity to participate in the new council term in the second phase. Should we declare climate action plan emergency? It's no secret I supported that at the council when it was put forward as a motion on the 25th of May. So yes, I agree, we should declare a climate action emergency. What year should we achieve zero community emissions? Set targets, aim high, but it's something that I believe we need to have more advice from people that have expertise, but also setting up a consultation group to actually focus on what is actually achievable. Council is a very large demographic. It's 6,000 hectares, which is 15,000 acre. There's a lot of property in Boroondara. There's a lot of ageing property in Boroondara. There's a lot of heritage property in Boroondara. How quickly could all that be converted to produce zero emission? I don't have the expertise to answer that now, but I'm certainly willing to have the conversation, and I'm certainly willing to set targets at a rate that is feasible and achievable. And if it could be brought forward sooner, well, then that would be an absolute bonus. So have I answered the questions? Thank you.
Lisa, thank you for that. Just one thing, the question about whether or not you would support continuing of the recording of council meetings and putting them on the website after COVID, did you?
I have no objection to that.
Okay, and someone suggested that it was unfair that Lisa got more time. I just wanted to point out she is the only candidate who is here tonight from that ward. So you are not evaluating her against Annabel and Qiqi. Annabel and Qiqi are running against each other, but Lisa is not running against either of them. So we're now going to move to questions from the chat. The way we're going to manage that is the candidates will all be given 2 minutes each to answer. David and I will take turns picking questions from the chat. David's going to choose the first question, and I'm going to be doing the timing. You will get a bell when your 2 minutes is up, and we ask you to wrap up as soon as possible after that, so we can get to as many questions as possible.
Yeah. So the first question I picked here is one from Jeannie Adcock, who said, do you see council as leading climate change action for us at the grassroots level?
Okay, and candidates are asked to answer this again in alphabetical order, so we'll start with Qiqi.
You need to unmute. Yeah, thank you for that. I do. I think that change needs to be driven by the people, and the grassroots level is most representative of that. But I think, and so just presenting the state of affairs and also empowering citizens on issues that relate to their daily lives, and given the year we've had so far, which was headed by the horrendous bushfires in Australia and felt by all. I think that any more, I guess, like feet dragging or delaying of implementing more effective climate action is lamentable, and that is not to drag sorry for my much millennial lingo. That's not to put down the efforts of our council so far, but there is so much more that can be done at the local council and also grassroots level. So yeah, that is my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Qiqi. So Annabel, next.
Yeah, I agree with Qiqi a lot. I think that it's important to encourage state and federal government to deal with these issues, but I also think that a almost more effective way to tackle it is from the foundations. And I think people underestimate. Sorry, someone else speak.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm trying to work out who that would be.
I'll just continue. I think like you can't build a brick wall on poor foundations. And I think council is a really awesome level if we don't underestimate its power. It's a really crucial level to actually getting our state government and our federal government to change. It's important to push the higher levels of government to make these changes, but I also think that it's almost like coming from the top, when I think a more effective way, especially personally, is to go at a level that is accessible to everyone. And because council is so intimate with the communities, I think it is a little more accessible and it is a little more achievable for us to do it from that groundroots level. So yes, 100% I agree. And I think councillors have a lot of power to push higher levels of government in the direction that we want them to go.
Okay.
On Lisa's point, yes, I agree that current council is doing a lot. So I do want to give credit to the current councillors and I thank them for that. And if I were to be elected, I would definitely rely on them and their knowledge to be able to succeed. So I don't want to understate the current councillors.
Okay, thank you, Annabel. And Lisa, same question.
Thank you. And Annabel, thank you for saying that. That was very nice. Appreciate that. Look, I absolutely, wholeheartedly, councillors have face-to-face interaction with residents. I believe that, you know, we have that, dare I say it, coalface interaction and that personable relationship where we can actually physically, pre and post-COVID, go and meet people. You know, we can actually sit in small groups or large groups, we can conduct forums, we can do the community consultation, and the information that comes back is the voice of the people that we've been elected to represent. So yes, absolutely. Local government is the starting point, and it's very important that we can then filter that information back through to state and federal. Wholeheartedly agree that it should be bipartisan. I think we all have to look at the big picture, and that's the ultimate outcome, regardless of what political party anyone's affiliated with. It's what's in the best interest of our community, and then also beyond Boroondara and looking at the wider elements of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll move on to another question from the chat. So I'm choosing the question, David's doing the timing. We might swap up the order a little bit. And I'm going to take this question, which is from Margot. I would like to revise my question if possible. I guess she must have asked a question earlier. To what plans would you like to implement to reach zero emissions, and how are they prioritized? So let's start with Annabel this time.
Okay, so coming out of COVID, I think the first thing is that the council cannot ask their ratepayers to do something that if they don't do it themselves. So I, as a councillor, would not expect my ratepayers to become zero emission or ride their bikes everywhere if I was not already doing that, or if council was not already zero emission. So the first step would be get council zero emission. That means bringing in electric vehicles. That means putting in accessible active transport routes all throughout Qiqi. Like Qiqi is, Studley specifically has so many schools in it, like there's schools on every corner. And so that is a massive opportunity for us to have really good active transport opportunities so that we can have students safely riding their skateboards, rollerblades, bikes, whatever unicycles, whatever. So the first thing for me would be get council's emission to zero emission, bike active transport, electric vehicles, getting all of our energy from renewable energy sources, and then asking the ratepayers to do the same thing. So in providing incentives to businesses, for example, what was talked about in the introduction, it was so businesses or ratepayers can put solar panels on their house and then pay it off over time without interest, so that it's not at a cost for them, of great cost. And then active transport for school students, and I guess go from there.
Okay, thanks very much. Lisa, I'll throw to you.
Thank you. I actually want to look even beyond solar panels, because Boroondara has a reasonable percentage of heritage properties, and it's not always practical or achievable to put solar panels on roofs of heritage homes, particularly if the north aspect is at the front of the property and it's in full exposure. So I'd like to look at alternate measures that can still provide what I call a thermal solution. Properties that may have thin glass, could have double glazed. Properties that have floorboards with gaps, they could have extra layers of engineered flooring put over the top. There's ways that we can improve our homes so that the internal thermal aspect helps keep in winter, but obviously keeps the heat out in summer. So I'd like to look at a broader aspect of everything we can do. Hydronic heating is also another good solution, as opposed to your typical the units that are basically sitting on a rooftop that could be cooling, heating, split system units. Look at something that's using less electricity, that's actually EPA friendly as well, so that we don't have the noise pollution from large heating and cooling units. Active transport, it's great for those that are able to do it. We obviously have an ageing community as well, so we have to be in a situation where there's always the opportunity for feasible bus, commute, car, transit. But for people that are able and wanting to ride their bikes, more shared paths. It's something that we've seen with COVID, that we are becoming more active and we're appreciating the great outdoors. We do have some constraints in Boroondara, because Boroondara was actually a parish that was first settled in 1838. So our road structures don't actually allow the width to put in the corridors that we'd like. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And over to Qiqi now.
Thank you. I would like to add, I think what Annabel said was excellent, in that there are two parts. First, I think actually, just to address Margaret's question, it wasn't clarified whether it was zero emissions of the council or the wider community. I think in addressing the council emissions, that should be a priority, and one of the most effective, well, not the most effective, sorry, that wasn't, but that needs to be addressed first, so that the council is actually being integral with their values that they're placing on on the community. And yes, you could say that, well, 1% of emissions isn't that much. It is still I think every percent counts in this battle against climate change. And so I think it has to be said that the emissions of the council have actually increased in the last year, and we are currently not on track in meeting zero emissions through the council. So that, and we've addressed, well, I've mentioned that there are excellent initiatives that can be implemented on a council level, including moving towards a electric vehicle fleet, and also making local council buildings more energy efficient. In terms of addressing the wider community, that is going to take a lot more effort by, I think, providing incentives for solar panels in car parks, and also efficient lights on the streets, and more renewable energy available for the community to purchase. And that will also have to include...
Time is up. All right.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Pardon me.
I think, David, maybe I better run the timer. It's just not coming through on your end.
Sorry, I don't know why. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Thanks very much, Qiqi. I'm now going to hand to David to choose a question from the chat.
There's a question here about residential developments, and it's really, should residential developments be required to meet high sustainability standards? So, you know, dealing with the new buildings. So who hasn't? I think Lisa hasn't started, so perhaps Lisa, you could answer that question first.
Right, thank you. So wholeheartedly agree. I've also, as a councillor, very interested in projects, applications that come before, whether it be statutory planning, urban planning, projects that councillors actually have involvement in decision making on. So as you could appreciate, some projects are handled internally with planners. Other projects that may be more controversial will come to various forums, and ultimately, if there's a project that needs to be determined within the chamber, it'll come to an urban planning meeting where objectors will have the opportunity to come and present. Those in support of the application will come and present, and a determination will be made. Now, quite often we're looking at, you know, elements of the sustainability of the building, so it's not just about the mass, the design, the architectural integrity, but it's about the thermal qualities, it's about the livability for the residents who will be obviously the occupiers of that building, and it's the sustainability of that building. Yes, as I said earlier, I believe that we can be doing more, and I know that that will take a shift with the Boroondara planning scheme, but also the state planning scheme framework. It's not something that can be implemented very quickly. It's something that will have to be a concerted effort, a group working together, and then talking about possible change to even res code and how these initiatives can be implemented so it becomes a part of the planning framework, and council or independent building surveyors, when they assess the applications, have the ability to increase the star rating. As an aside, I've also just recently become a member of the Master Builders Association Housing Sector Committee, and I'm very interested to have a voice in that. Thank you. Sorry, I heard the beep. Am I to?
Yep, sorry. Qiqi, maybe you could give your answer now.
Yep, thank you. Mine would be relatively short and brief, given my, so I think, yes, it makes sense that we would have new, I'm assuming new residential developments, or be of the highest sustainability standards. It's not an issue of whether we have the technology to do that. It has a lot, it's more about the design of the buildings and needing to make sure that sustainability is at the fore of design when planning for developments. And so I think it really requires pressure from locals and also from council to have that in effect. So yes.
Annabel, perhaps we can hear from you.
Yeah, definitely agree. There needs to be some sort of incentive for new buildings to want to be more sustainable. So there definitely needs to be a regulation implemented there. How it's done, I agree with Lisa. It needs to be it needs to be something that is attainable for all new buildings, not just companies that can afford it. But there are a lot of regulations that don't cost a lot of money in terms of buildings. For example, new houses, nobody needs to be connected to gas these days. There is no real need to have gas in your house anymore. There is new technology that is completely outdated the need for gas. Other things are like the way that buildings can be directed with the sun, so that in summer the sun is not coming into your building and in winter it is. And that requires basic simulations so that people can have their aircon on less in summer and have their heating on less in winter. And they're like very small steps that can reward sustainable buildings with lower council rates and also lower energy costs. And then that will encourage people who that are building new residential buildings but have current residential buildings to actually become more sustainable, because they'll realize that they can pay lower rates if they make small adjustments to the way that their business or house functions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So look, we've got time for one last question before we round up, and I'll ask people to give quick answers to this one. Question is, do you have plans on preserving the Yarra Bend? I noticed quite a bit of bush bashing by mountain bikers whilst on my walk. So we wanted to ask a question that wasn't just climate, and that's the one I've picked out. So perhaps we could start with Lisa.
Look, thank you for that. As you can appreciate, Yarra Bend isn't in the Lynden ward, but it's certainly a matter that's happening all across Boroondara. So I'll try and focus specifically on that, but look at it as a more general answer. There's been a lot of activity on all of our green open spaces as a consequence of COVID. People haven't been able to go to skate parks, and I'm not just talking children, I'm talking adults as well. So they're finding other areas where they can go and take their BMX and meet their mates and have activity. And council is receiving a lot of complaints from people that are particularly concerned about our biodiversity and green habitat spaces. So what can be done? Our trees team and our arborists and our biodiversity department are out monitoring. It's something that will take the TLC once we get through COVID, when infrastructure and activity centres and recreational centres and parks, they're all open again. That will take some of the pressure off. But certainly preservation, planting, protection, conservation, Boroondara is very focused on that. I don't think this is necessarily, a current or future councillor question, but I can assure you Boroondara do take great pride in it and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Qiqi?
Yes. I think that I think Lisa's made an excellent point that because of our current circumstances, we don't have, or youth and the adults don't have as many places to socialize and to explore or to use their COVID or the copious free time. And I think the Yarra Bend could use more investments in building up mountain biking tracks, so that there is something for the youth to engage with. And I think that we've seen some of those mountain biking areas or natural trails naturally evolving or emerging as a result of use, but we should ensure the areas so that to make sure that our community are being looked after, and to also look into preserving what is our natural biodiversity. Thanks.
Okay, and Annabel, over to you.
Well, thank you for the question. In my short campaign period, it's actually not something that I've come across. So thanks for bringing it to my attention. I do just walk just north of my house along the Yarra, and I walk along, and there's those little skinny trails along the side, and sometimes you'll just see a bike come whizzing down. So it is actually a problem now that I can recall these situations. Obviously, it's been elevated by COVID because there's more people riding bikes, but potentially I think it is something that we should address, and maybe it is worth the investment of a proper path for mountain bike people who enjoy mountain biking along the Yarra, because it could be an issue, and I've actually experienced close incidents with those paths. So yes, I agree with the biodiversity sort of issue, but just north of here in Studley, there is an intersection where the freeway and the Yarra path are right next to each other, and in that little space there's actually not, it's kind of just weeds and rubbish from the freeway. So potentially that's a space that we could put a safe mountain biking track separate from the path, but just next to it, so that everyone is safe. Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's something that's been elevated by Corona. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I'll give a bit more thought to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're coming to the end of the evening. There are questions in the chat that we haven't gotten to, I'm sorry to say. Some about shared paths and about cats, which would have been an interesting one to get to, but we have run out of time. So to end our evening, each of the candidates is given an opportunity to make a final 2-minute statement where they can outline why they want to be your council representative. And I suppose if you're looking for people to help with your campaign, you could also ask for that. So I'm going to go back to alphabetical order, start with Qiqi Chen for the final 2-minute statement. And I'm going to start now. Qiqi, you're on mute though.
Excellent. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you everyone for attending and for your time and for your concern about climate action or the lack thereof. I think that this I think that the council's done great work in wanting to have more progressive climate action, but it does, it's disheartening that there isn't more action being done. And I think that the survey that was sent out, that was due a few weeks ago. It is a good first step to listening to the people, but at the same time, given the track record of issues that the current council has with responding and actioning issues that have been forwarded by residents, I'm not entirely, I don't know how well they will take on board climate issues from the Climate Action Plan. And so I think that voting for more progressive and greener initiatives from your local candidates, and to support youth and diversity on local council, you can give a new voice a go, and also for people who have the energy to actually, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And going again in alphabetical order, we're next to Annabel.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming tonight. It's really exciting to see this many people spending their Wednesday night going onto a Zoom call to listen to and be involved in something that's really important to me and should be more important to our leaders. It's also really, it makes me happy and sad that most of the people here are not in my age range, or by the looks of it, not even close. But I actually thank you for being involved, in something that doesn't directly concern you and your lifetime. Because I think that's the mentality of a lot of our current leaders is, oh, like, I won't have to deal with it, just leave it for somebody else as long as it fills my pocket. And so I'm actually really grateful that you guys are here caring about something that may not directly affect you, but people down the line from you. So firstly, thank you for that. And secondly, to the people that live in Studley, a vote for myself is a vote for integrity and a vote for action on climate change and a vote for people, young representation. 40% of people in Boroondara are under the age of 30, and there's no councillor that represents that huge majority of ratepayers. So I urge you to think about that, and I would love your support in my campaign. I am a full-time student right now, and I'm also working part-time. So really any help is greatly appreciated, and I have lots of flyers to hand out. Even just talking to your friends and relatives, it would be really helpful in getting my name out. Qiqi and I have a lot of people challenging us, and we are the only two here tonight and the only two that have any intention, I believe, in addressing climate change. So we're definitely worth your time.
Thanks very much, Annabel. And Lisa, lastly to you.
Thank you very much. Look, as a first-term councillor, I've only had 4 years in council, so I don't have a long legacy with the history. From my experience, and I'll only talk about myself and not reflect on any other current councillors, when there's been concern about lack of response, I can assure you that I always respond to every resident, and if I have not responded to one, it certainly hasn't been intentional. So I believe I have a good rapport. As I mentioned before, the role of a councillor is to be the voice of the community that elected them. So you do need to be approachable and responsive and convey their message. I believe it would be important to establish an environment and sustainability advisory group. So as a councillor at the moment, there are numerous councillor assignments. Councillors, when elected, are given the opportunity to put their name down for various advisory groups. As an example, I'm on the Disability Advisory Group, the Community Safety Group, and Domestic Violence, and a few others as well. But an Environment Sustainability Group would be wonderful, because the opportunity is to have external community members, people that may have some comprehensive knowledge in climate change initiatives, then possibly complemented with 1 or 2 councillors and possibly 1 or 2 officers from the Sustainability Department. That type of advisory group would be very productive, very progressive, and it would help us develop and further enhance any climate action initiatives. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. So just in closing, a couple of things. A big thank you to our candidates for showing up tonight, putting themselves on the line, taking questions that they weren't prepared for. That takes a certain level of bravery, which I think we should all appreciate. If you have further questions that you'd like to ask these candidates, or if you wanted to volunteer for them, their contact details are on the VEC website. So you can just go and look at the Boroondara page, and all the wards are there, all the candidates and their contact details are there. I think lastly, David, were you going to mention our next meeting?
Yes, so I've put the link to it in the chat room just now, but the next meeting, the next Line of Footprints meeting is in 4 weeks, and it's on the fight to save our forests. Love to see you there, and you can go along to the Line of Footprints website and RSVP, or you can follow the link in the chat room and that will take you there. It promises to be a very good evening.
Okay, so that concludes our evening. Thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you especially to our candidates for making their time for us. I hope you found this interesting, and hope it helps you to decide where you want to place your vote. So thank you again, and good night.
Good night. Thank you.